Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Sports Interviews. Tonight we got Phil Elson, the play-by-play announcer for the Arkansas Razorbacks men's baseball team and women's basketball team, as well as the host of the halftime show on ESPN Arkansas. This interview was done earlier today, and we want to remind you that all interviews that we do, past, present, and future, will be on our YouTube channel on Frankly Speaking Sports. Everybody, enjoy the show. Frankly Speaking Sports Hotline is my great honor, pleasure, and thrill to introduce to you the radio voice of Razorback baseball and women's basketball, as well as the host of the halftime radio show on ESPN Arkansas. Let's welcome Phil Elson. Phil, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Larry, man. I appreciate your invite to the podcast, and looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, Phil, I just moved here not too long ago from Tampa, Florida. I was there for 36 years, so I was actually following the SEC East. Now I'm learning to follow, I'm wearing right now, you'll be proud of me, an Arkansas shirt and an Arkansas hat. I am learning to love this team. Everywhere I go, you see somebody with an Arkansas shirt or hat on. I mean, they just love their team here, don't they?
Yeah, it's kind of more than just love their team, Larry. And as a transplant from outside the state myself, although I've lived here 20 years, I can tell you that it takes a little time getting used to at first, because it's more than love, it's more than passion, it's ingrained, it's part of the fabric of living in Arkansas and being an Arkansan. Even for people who are not Razorback fans, which really constitutes maybe, I don't know, like 10%, 15% of the state population, those people have strong feelings one way or the other about the Razorbacks. So you're noticing it. You can't get away from the Razorbacks no matter where you are in Arkansas. It doesn't matter what college campus you're on. Doesn't matter what city you're in, what region you're in. It's the Razorback state for a reason.
Now, Phil, it was roughly 2 months ago. You're in the peak of what is supposed to be the peak of your season. You do your play-by-play, SEC baseball starting, and you do play-by-play for baseball, and the women's basketball team is just having an amazing season. They're about to go to the tournament, the NCAA tournament, and then boom, in the wink of an eye, everything changes. Try to think back to that moment when you found out that everything that you do, basically, except for your radio show, but your play-by-play announcing for both teams, all of a sudden was switched off.
Well, I mean, the radio show is sort of predicated on the teams that I work for, so that frightened me when I heard that everything was going to be shut down, that maybe our show and our station would be shut down, because our whole station is predicated on the Razorbacks. But I think we have found that we are more than just, reporting Razorback games that we're seeing, or reporting Razorback games that we're previewing, because that's what you've had to do in these last couple of months, and that's what we'll have to do for the next at least 2 to 3 months.
Right.
When it was a difficult reality to A, understand, B, accept, and then C, become adjust my attitude towards, when I learned that not only the NCAA basketball tournaments would be canceled, but in a more long-term sense, the baseball season would be canceled. And then the more you think about it, all the other sports are in jeopardy too, as we're learning now, that, if there's a second wave, depending on how people act this summer and what responsible or non-responsible actions they take, whether or not we'll have a football season sort of depends upon that. So when it really hit me is after. It was the day after the season was suspended by the SEC, not canceled, but suspended. And I texted Dave Van Horn just, as a hello and telling him, that I'm looking forward to getting back in a couple of weeks, I hope. And he just told me then and there over a text that the season was going to be canceled. It hadn't been announced yet, but when Dave tells me something, I believe him. And it hit home with me at that very moment, and I felt empty. I was sad for the cancellation of the basketball tournaments, but I feel like that had more to do with the building of the program and seeing those girls have the chance to see their season. It's been a really fun season, capped by great national exposure, and they would have made a little run, I think, in the tournament this year. But for me, baseball is really at the heart of who I am, just like the Razorbacks are at the heart of who Arkansas is. And I've called baseball games in college and minor league baseball for 23 years, and knowing that I wasn't going to have that chance when it hit home with me, that gave me a really empty feeling. I still feel it, but I've become more accustomed to it.
And Phil, as anybody knows, when you're doing play-by-play announcing for any team, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, whatever, you get real close ties with the coach and the players. A lot of seniors lost out this year, actually good seniors for the Razorbacks that were trying to showcase themselves, maybe to help their stock a little bit better in the Major League Baseball draft. I mean, talk about the impact for all listeners. They say, yeah, we understand, but I don't think they really do understand the impact it had on these kids that were possibly playing their last year of collegiate baseball.
Well, it speaks to something deeper than just what happened to the seniors in college baseball, and I think you understand that too, Larry. This has cost everyone a year of development, a year of games. Not just college players. The people that this affects the least, in a weird way, are the major league players, because we're trying to figure out a way that we're going to have a major league season. There's not going to be a minor league baseball season. There was no high school baseball. There has been no college baseball this year. All of the summer tournaments, they've either been canceled or changed to the point where it's not the same sort of tournaments that these kids were playing in for the last few years. This has cost everyone a year of development. The kids for seniors in college baseball, they get that year back if they want it. The guys who are juniors that were going to be drafted, they get a choice. Some of them still might go in this weird 5-round draft. They might still have a chance to sign for a much lower amount of money, but go play professional baseball or come back and play college baseball. The minor leaguers that the major league teams want to keep on for another year or so, they'll come back and play next year. The kids who I really feel sorry for are the high school seniors, those who really might not have, thought that they were going to be anything special, even if they did play college baseball. You want to talk about people that are playing for the love of the game, high school seniors. I was once a high school senior, played college baseball. I thought about this last week. If I would have had a senior year, I remember so much about it. It meant so much. Those kids will never have that back. They don't get that senior year of eligibility back. They're done. That's heartbreaking. And that's what we have to remember. We think about pro athletes, we think about college athletes and everything, but we pay lip service to the thought of rooting for those who, quote unquote, play for the love of the game. High school seniors play for love of the game, probably more than most other people, and they had their last year ripped from them.
No, definitely. I agree with you. Over the weekend, Phil, some very, very sad news, especially, for the whole college basketball world was the sudden death of Eddie Sutton. For those people like myself, now I remember Eddie Sutton as a coach. He was here from the 70s to the mid 80s here in Arkansas. What was the impact that Eddie Sutton had on Arkansas basketball?
Well, I think his impact was long and deep and is still felt. I think the truth is he's not recognized as the greatest basketball coach in Arkansas history, and that's for good reason. That's because Nolan Richardson won the only national championship here and established a bar that was legitimately higher than the bar that Coach Sutton had set. And real quick, I'm about to go through the tunnel, so if I lose you, I'll catch you on the other side.
Okay.
Before Eddie Sutton arrived at Arkansas, college basketball wasn't even a thought at Arkansas. It was football, and that was it. And Eddie Sutton, I think, is the real architect of the rabid fan base, what Arkansas is and what they had been known for. And I think it's legitimate that without Eddie Sutton's influence and without his push to kind of create a statewide basketball fan base, that the Razorbacks would not have been able to, I think, have the same sort of success under Nolan Richardson. Probably wouldn't have been able to hire a coach like Nolan Richardson. So he's like the godfather of Arkansas college basketball history. And it's interesting that his death, so no surprise, comes so shortly after he was voted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. So I feel like almost a whole generation of younger Razorback fans just recently were educated on Sutton's influence at Arkansas. They might have known who he was as far as, being at Oklahoma State and some of the things surrounding that. But now, right at his death, it feels like we're having that conversation all over again. But it's not a surprise to people when we're talking about these things, about coaching, 25 NBA players, and being the first coach to take 4 teams to the NCAA tournament, but also the feeling that without what Eddie Sutton did at Arkansas, that they themselves wouldn't have, the passion for Arkansas basketball that they do right now.
Right. We are talking to Phil Elson, radio voice of Razorback baseball and women's basketball, and host of the halftime radio show on ESPN Arkansas. Phil, I'm listening to, and you talked about it earlier, and you brought it up about the start of possibly the college football season. And I know on your show on ESPN you cover all variety of different sports. I've been listening to the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and also the athletic director of Arkansas, Hunter Yurachek, and from what they are saying, now once again, this is from what they are saying, they are going on with things as planned. For example, June 8th, they're going to allow some of these facilities to open up and some of the student athletes. And according to Hunter Yurachek, he said he plans on the home opener on September 5th being played. He doesn't expect anything to change. In your opinion, do you see that happening?
Well, I think that the public face that any athletic director right now has to face forward to the public with is not necessarily optimism, but that we are planning for so on and so forth. I will guarantee you that while Hunter Yurachek is talking about we're planning for a September 7th home opener, that they're also planning for the possibility of the season being pushed back a couple of weeks or maybe even further. I think that what they've learned, or not that they've learned, they've been forced to do, and everybody's been forced to do, is make plans for a number of different situations. So when he goes to the Board of Trustees and says, I'm planning for September 7th, and we're opening, the facilities on June the 8th, that's Plan 1A. They also have Plan 1B, 1C, Plan B, Plan 2. I'm telling you, there are many different scenarios that I feel like they have to plan for. But the best case scenario is to open on time, to find a way to test the people that will be traveling with your players, to find a way to create some sort of a bubble and drive the point home to the people that step outside that bubble to be precautious, maybe to a fault, because you don't want this experiment to fail. So right now, I do think that we're going to start on time. I don't know, and here we are at the end of April, wondering, worrying, not being sure about something that's going to happen in September. You know what? We don't know what's going to happen next month. We don't know what's going to happen in July, and we don't know what's going to happen in August. So everybody's got to have different plans for certain situations, and I think they, meaning Arkansas and the SEC and everybody else in college sports, knows that and keeps that in mind.
Now, can you, and of course, we might not have a choice. We have to do what we can do with the, obviously safety and all that, all the precautions we need to take in order for people to be safe. But can you imagine, an Arkansas football game going on with no fans in the stands?
We can all joke and say, have you been at a game in the fourth quarter the last couple of years? Because it's kind of been like that.
Right.
Yes, I can. I think it would be very weird. I don't think it would be college football or sports the way that people, are used to experiencing. If that's the only way that it happens, then that's the only way that it happens. And college football, college sports will find a way to monetize things properly so that the business can survive, because it is a business, and fans will watch on television then if that's the case, and they'll be disappointed if they can't go to the games or tailgate or whatever, but life isn't going to continue like that for eternity. So I think we have to be open to accepting certain restrictions, whether it's empty stadium, half full, a third full, whatever. I'm no expert on how you do these things. So I'm willing to accept what the planners feel is best for the university, for the student athletes, for the fans, for everybody that's involved. Because I truly think they're the only ones who are really able to balance it all and come out with the best plan.
Now, Phil, before we let you go, I have one more question with you. You've won now, I believe it's 3 times. You've been, privileged to win the Arkansas Sportscaster of the Year award. For all our listeners, and we now have a decent following here in Arkansas. We have a lot of people in Florida as well. What does that award, you work hard, there's no doubt about it. Everybody that listens to you, and I've listened, played a tape earlier of you calling the game where you clinched the World Series to go into the College World Series. What's that award mean to you?
That's an interesting question. It means acceptance. It means there are people who enjoy what I do. It means that I've been around for a while. Acceptance is an interesting word to center on, to talk about that, because I have won it 3 times, but I won it for different reasons. The first time I was named I got that award was when I was doing minor league baseball for the Arkansas Travelers. and which is what brought me to Arkansas in 2001, the AA team in Little Rock. And I was also broadcasting women's basketball at UALR. I did not have a connection to the Arkansas Razorbacks, zero. And the truth is, when you look back at the award winners, and this is also another one of the reasons that I take pride in winning this award: Paul Eels, Bud Campbell, Steve Sullivan, Chuck Barrett, Mike Nail, Ray Tucker. The list goes on and on, and they're great sportscasters, legendary, every last one of them. But they all made their bones covering the Razorbacks. And I won the award the first time while having nothing to do with the Razorbacks. And then the last two times that I've gotten this, I've been all Razorback. So I feel it shows at least a little versatility. It shows somebody that is not from here and still doesn't sound like I'm from here, can really be accepted as an Arkansan and as a Razorback too. And I do take pride in that.
Well, Phil, we love listening to you. I've listened to, unfortunately, I got down here and only heard a few games because obviously the season was canceled like we talked about earlier. But I want to thank you so very much for joining us today on Frankly Speaking Sports.
Well, Larry, it's been a pleasure. And I got to ask, because I can tell that accent that you've got, my parents sound like you. Where are you from? Are you from New York City?
I'm actually from originally Long Island.
Okay.
But I lived in Florida, then I moved to Florida, but I lived in New York for 13 years.
I've got two parents that are natives of Queens and met at Queens College. And my mother is born and raised in Rosedale, which you probably know is like the last borough before Long Island starts, although it's on Long Island, so I grew up with people that sound just like you.
Well, I hope that's a good thing.
I know it is a good thing. I love New York.
Well, listen, be safe, and I'll probably, hope to see you in the near future when I'm at some Arkansas games.
Very good. Take care. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Want to remind you all that if you enjoyed this interview, all our interviews are on our YouTube channel, which is Frankly Speaking Sports. That's all our past interviews and our current and future interviews will be on that YouTube channel. I hope everybody has a terrific night and hope to see you again on the next episode of Frankly Speaking Sports Interviews.